Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Developing Dads podcast, episode number 85 of the Developing Dads podcast. This is Friday evening. Neil's got a beer. I have a beer. What are you drinking, Neil? Are you having anything particularly tasty, or you having something? What are you having a can of?
Oh, you're back. I'm having a can of Hazy Jane.
Nice. I'm having a Mad Squirrel, which is a Costco jobby. It's very, very good actually. You can buy a case of it for, I think it costs less, just about £1 a can.
Wow, that's all right.
Do you have a Costco membership?
We do, yeah. We go sometimes. I find the meat's really good, but you've got to just buy a lot of it at once.
Oh yeah, you walk in there and you buy 14,000 kitchen towels. You don't just buy a pack of 6.
Yeah. And like the kids enjoy it. The kids like tasting the free things and like seeing the massive box of marshmallows and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say we shop regularly. I mean, you see people that clearly go there every week and just fill their trolleys with shite. But we're not.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. I go probably once a quarter.
Yeah.
And stock up on all the kind of random things. And you got to be sensible, because you've got to look at the prices and be like, well, it's, unit price compared to Tesco's, it's got to be cheaper. And it probably works out a couple of quid cheaper every so often, but I think I'd just rather have less trips to Tesco's and buy toilet roll and crap.
It's quite satisfying when you've got like loads of detergent and Fairy Liquid or whatever just stocked in the house.
Exactly. And I've also got a wee dram.
Wow.
I've got a Cole Ela for tonight, an 18-year-old. So
nice.
Yeah, I just fancied a fancy one. So yeah, episode number 85. We are titling this one, or we're going to be talking about self-care for dads. This was Neil using ChatGPT to try and work out what we should talk about. And to be fair, self-care is all right. Mental health for fathers and how to prioritize it. So he's used ChatGPT to come up with some ideas on bits and pieces. I've added a little bit at the end. I was kind of curious to see where I could explore some things. As always with the Developing Dads podcast, we do try and catch up and find out how we are and what we've been up to and what we've been doing. So Neil, what have you been doing?
What I've been doing? Well, a highlight definitely was last week. I went to the yearly Brewdog AGM, which they hosted at their Ellen Brewery up in Aberdeenshire. Me and a friend, Callum, decided to drive all the way up. And then, it was just a great day out, really well organised. They said 3,000 people. I don't know, I'd say maybe more like 2,000-ish, but it was just awesome. Great music, cheap alcohol. James did a Q&A, which was nice. He was around quite a lot, which, again, I don't know, like if anyone's, or you've probably seen it as well, but the BBC documentary kind of shamed him, and apparently the BBC are going to come out with more soon about him and some scandals. But I just think, and I'd be interested to see your opinion on this, like if he's that bad a guy and he's got that much to hide, why does he make himself so public in these like big events? Like he's literally at the bar having beers with fans. Like
denial.
Yeah, maybe ego, or people at the AGM are obviously fans of Brewdog and won't say anything wrong. Well, not necessarily. I mean, I'm sure there's BBC undercover reporters that will get tickets somehow to these events. But
I mean, like what's do you know what the latest is going to be about him? Is it?
No. So interestingly, they had a mental health stand at the Brewdog thing, because they like talking about that now. And there's a mental health advocate there, and apparently they have 10% of their workforce are mental health first aiders. And they were talking about, like, he was talking about how Brewdog are kind of leading the way and stuff like that. And then I asked him what he thought about the BBC scandal and what it kind of uncovered. And he said he couldn't really talk about it, but apparently BBC are releasing something else about Brewdog that they've uncovered.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say. I mean, it's kind of, I think any person, like not just male or female, anyone that amasses an audience, who builds a business that gets to $1 billion valuation,
Yeah.
There's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Right? There's something wrong. Sorry, I think that's a bad thing to say, because it's not necessarily something wrong with you, but there's something that's not neurotypical, I guess. There's not something that's kind of that is behavior that would be common in and across society.
Yeah.
And I think there's positives that come from that, where you will outstrip and outperform a lot of the people that you're around. But equally, there's probably an equal and opposite reaction to the traits that make you great. There's probably traits that make you a not very nice person, to be quite frank.
Yeah,
so
and that gets amplified when you're owning a big business and you're a character.
And you have an audience, right? Yeah, all of that. And, it's kind of like if you want to be the top of that tree of like a $1 billion worth a company, you're going to be different. There's no way that you're going to be just have an employee mindset. There's no way that you're going to demand less or more, or you're not going to be able to communicate properly. Like, there's probably certain behaviors that you, regardless of whether or not you're whatever you are, there's probably like using power and all that kind of thing. Like Lizzo or something, the singer was in the news today, or yesterday, talking about like sexual harassment and bullying and all sorts of bits and pieces. So, it goes across the board. So I guess it's kind of, I don't sympathize at all. And I think there's some of it, it's kind of like he's trying to he's obviously not realized how bad he was, or he's done something very wrong, or he has realized, not done anything about it, and now he's been called out on it, and now he's trying to, recover in a sense.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably a lot going on, and like, I don't know, bad shit happens.
Yeah.
Like people are not nice. Yes, people are not nice.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, then fine. Like, complain about it, go to the police, do what you need to do. But I just, like, I do I need to read about it? I don't care. Like, it's not like, I'm sorry if you were in the back end of James Watt and his horrible tirades or bullying or whatever else. But at the same time, it's like, is it really newsworthy? Is the BBC really are spending my tax-paying money following around a brewer, and reporting on it?
Yeah, mad.
Is that really news that I want to hear about? Like, so I guess that's part of it. But did the AGM not be as big as it was? Because it used to be like this massive thing in Aberdeen, wasn't it? Like,
so they used to do 10,000 people at the AACC, but they tried to get to the new AACC, which is a bigger complex. I can't remember how much Aberdeen Council wanted for hosting it there. It was just obscene amount of money that Brewdog weren't willing to pay, and they always make a loss in these things. But yeah, so they just decided to do a bit of a smaller one. But still very good. Did a brewery tour. So I did a brewery tour about 10 years ago, and I did another one last weekend, and the difference is just mad. Like, just seeing the expansion. They've bought out like most of the companies around this industrial estate and just like bolted on bits to like make a bigger cannon line, make more things to keep beer, and yeah, it's just a mad story. And the fact that they've kind of taken over Ellen industrial estate, it's pretty cool. And I came home, and I got a sickness bug. Just a standard dad thing. Every 3 to 6 months, you get something that's minging. So the kids had it. Rebecca got away with it, but I got floored. I think it was a mixture of like beer, lots and lots of beer, and then coming home and just feeling a bit queasy. So yeah, Sunday was a bit of a write-off, Sunday night, and then into a busy week at work.
I think there's a summer cold, because I had something. Olivia's had something. Laura's had something. So
yeah,
like, who knows where these things come from? To be perfectly honest, like,
I know.
But yeah, no, I had something as well.
And then I had a work colleague who stayed a work friend, shouldn't call him a colleague, who came up from London. He had a wedding, so he stayed at mine, and we chilled, hung out today, went for a swim. He's into sea swimming as well, which was nice. Went for coffee, just chilled out, and we're packing for a trip. We're going to it's actually pronounced Isla It's spelt Islay, but the island of Isla, which the whiskey you're drinking is from, and I'll be visiting their distillery. Probably won't do a tour.
Look at that.
Because I've done tours.
Look at that. Awesome.
So yeah, we're going there for 6 days, leaving Sunday.
Wow. So this is the proper summer holidays now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we're almost at the end of summer holidays in Scotland. Like England's way behind or whatever. Scotland's ahead. So yeah, the kids go back to school in a week and a half.
Wow.
So
wow, that's over. Well, you get some free time now, isn't it? Basically, where the kids now get babysat free.
Yeah, it's a bit mad. And like on Fridays, normally I don't work Fridays, obviously, but at lunchtime, 12 o'clock, the boys come out of nursery, but they're going to be in school until like 3:15. I'm not going to know what to do with myself.
Sounds great, Neil.
I'll find out, but yeah, they're very excited. They got school shoes and they're all sorted, all equipped now. But yeah, that's my week.
Very good.
How's your week been?
I came off the back of last week was mental. I
Recording
had
lots.
1, 2, 3, 4. I had 5 shoots out of 7 last week, which was it's very intense. In fact, like super intense. And then there's also the shoot thing is kind of interesting because it's like, oh, you just do the shoot and that's it. But no, it's like I've got to charge all the batteries, prep all the kit, make sure it's all organized, do all like the memory cards and stuff, plan and prep for everything, like travel, and there's just a lot to it. And last week it was just pretty hellish, to be honest, like hardcore. And then this week's been not too dissimilar because I've had to catch up with all the stuff that I hadn't done. I had a shoot yesterday in Wigan. I've been chasing my tail with a few bits because I'm working with an insurance company to do something, but they're the feedback's okay, but it's kind of convoluted and it's not like kind of quite direct, which is kind of hard. And they want like all these kind of things that don't really work. And it's just hard. Like it's hard
quite
to
a big,
manage
like,
it all.
Commercial insurance company?
Reasonably big, not like a ginormous one. Part of them specialize in things like cycling insurance. So they're doing something else with a thing they're launching. It's supposed to be launching on Sunday, but I'm kind of like behind on the editing thing that they need, and it's just all a bit like hardcore. And then it's kind of like, you do a couple of days, and then I was looking at Olivia all day on Wednesday, and then that sets me back. And then I had it all day in Wigan yesterday, and the train was really, really busy, so it was difficult to do work on the train because you're kind of cramped in. And then today's kind of been trying to catch up and get the work done, but then I've had 4 calls all day because I've got that's a good thing, but I've got a VAT register now. So I have a call with my accountant and get all that sorted and covered. And then, so I'll probably have to do a bit of work tomorrow and then a little bit of work to try and get this thing over the line before Sunday. So one of those weeks. Yeah, busy. But, it is what it is, right? I own my own business and sometimes it's going to be busy.
No socializing, no going out?
No, actually, I haven't done any socializing this week. It's been just work. Tomorrow, we're supposed to be going to some farm, but the weather looks atrocious, so that's not going to happen. However, I have, Neil. There's a friend of mine who's on Instagram. He often shows us his pizza making skills.
Oh,
and he's got his own like pizza dough recipe, and it looks really good, like really nice looking dough. And I was like, right, I want to try that. That looks really cool. So I got the recipe off him. So I've started it today. You do the poolish.
What's that?
It's a sloppy mixture of equal parts water and flour, and then 2 grams of yeast.
And just leave it to ferment overnight or something.
Yeah, so you leave it to sit for an hour. Now it's sitting in the fridge for 24 hours. And then tomorrow we'll add like 390 grams of flour and a bunch of salt and some more water and stuff, right? And then mix it all up and then olive oil a bowl, and then stick it in there, and again let it sit for an hour, and then stick it in the fridge for 16 to 24 hours.
Wow.
And then take it out and then cook it, basically.
So that's Sunday's dinner pizza.
Sunday afternoon. Yeah, we're gonna have that for Sunday afternoon. I just quite fancied it because I bought the ready rolled stuff, or the stuff that's already done.
Horrendous.
Like, it's fine, but it's not hopefully it's not as good as this. So we're going to try that and then see if it works. It's a super simple recipe, right? It's just it just needs time.
Yeah.
So if it means that if I can make it and it works, then I'll definitely do it again.
Nice.
And then we've got to go to a friend's christening party on Sunday. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Which,
Fair. Standard.
Yeah,
Dad life
that's
stuff.
it. Honestly, it's just a boring. Like last week was mental. This week's been really busy. I've got to catch up with a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it.
At least, like, I don't know, with the podcast and like listening to your workload, it kind of definitely goes up and down. Like some weeks you're like, I haven't really done much, and like it's been quite chilled and working from home. But
Yeah, I know, and I can't really complain. Like to be in the like my year runs November to November. Don't ask me why. And to be in a position where I'm VAT registering tells me that something's going right.
yeah,
And I don't feel like this all of the time. Like the past 2 weeks, I've just been busy, and I don't feel like this all the time. Whereas previously, most of my life was like this.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm technically earning more and working less, and that's with just my target this year was to be more organized, to be more systematized, to be more pragmatic, to be much more business orientated. It's paying off, right?
Yeah.
Working less, earning more. Like that's what you want from your company, from your business. I got 2 people that work for me, potentially a third, based on. I told you I'd sold a unlimited package, did I?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that. This is good. This is good shit. It's just fucking stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, it's kind of it, really. To be honest, yeah, it's just a busy time. Like, just keep up with stuff, get it done, get it over the line. Experiencing things when the difference is like when you work with like young entrepreneurs, and especially in the fitness industry where they're kind of adopting they're quite young and early adopters to platforms and things. They're not particularly organized, so then they don't really ask for feedback or want changes in some of the work that you're doing. So it's just kind of like rolls out the door, right? Whereas when it comes to corporate stuff, they're less aligned with what they want, not only just because it's kind of like a transient product or thing they're trying to come up with or launch for the first time, but equally they're not succinct with the current updated trends of platforms and editing and things that they could do or not do, or how much they cost or how much they don't cost or whatever else. And then even modern platforms of feedback, like I've got certain ways you can give me feedback which is much more succinct and much faster, but again not so up to date with it, so it makes it a bit more challenging for me. So I have to read an email that says at time 24 you need to cut this out and change that, and you're like, yeah. Here we are.
Nice.
Here we are. Anyway.
Talking about self-care for men. So this was, although ChatGPT helped me with this topic, there's been a few dads in my close circle going through some pretty rough times.
Rough times?
Mentally. Rough times, yeah.
Why are they rough?
I can't really, I mean, they listen to the podcast, so I don't think they'd appreciate me sharing it, but just in general, like going through a bit of a
general, Neil, what kind of things in your periphery are people suffering with?
I guess like the pressures of life. It's very generic, but just lots of things going on, lots of things happening. Are they in the right job? Are they in the right relationship? All that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, quite deep, but I struggle to, I mean, we've talked about this in the podcast before, but men just go into, well, just write a list or just tick a box or just do something or go for a run or go for a walk and I struggle to, as Steve Bartlett says a lot, just get into the trenches, or Simon Sinek, just like sit in the mud. I think Simon's famous for saying sit in the mud with your friends and just listen. And I think I'm getting better, but anyway, when ChatGPT gave me one of the topic ideas for self-care for men, I thought, yeah, that's a pretty poignant topic in my life right now.
Do you not think though that like the things you've just described are just a band-aid? like as a distraction, right? So
Yeah.
like exercise exercise is a distraction. It's not
Yeah.
it's not really a solution.
Yeah.
You know, it's like let's do something that's painful. Because if I only have to think about one thing, then I don't have to think about anything else.
Yeah.
You know, there's kind of a quadrant thing that's kind of interesting about how to work out. Like there's a few other things. Actually, that's a good point. Let's start with something useful. It's like if you find yourself in a predicament where you don't know what to do, like how do you have you ever explored how to figure out what to choose and what to do?
I generally take advice from my peers, write it down, think of the pros and cons. Yeah, that's my, yeah, if I'm in a bit of a rut, I'll write things down, think of the pros and cons, speak to my peers, see what they think, and action something.
Because there's a few things you can do is like if you, and you're in this, but it's that kind of wide question, isn't it? Of, am I doing the right job, or am I spending the time, like, because that's, am I doing the right job is not so much the right job, is it, am I spending my time the way I want to?
Yeah.
Is really the question. It's not like, no one loves their work, but if your work was 50% good and 49% bad, great. What do you expect?
Yeah.
So there's kind of like the ideal week thing. Have you ever written out your ideal week?
Yeah, I think, was that on Die With Zero? I'm sure I did it when I read that book a couple of years ago now. I'm sure I just took a Apple note and wrote down my ideal week. Well, I remember exactly when we talked about it. You asked me that question when we were doing an episode in the bakery. That was years ago. Well, not years ago, obviously, but last year. I did an episode in the bakery, and one of the questions you asked me was, what would be your ideal week? So yeah, I thought about it.
So what is your ideal week then?
I think having more free time than time that I need to commit to a job or an employer. Being some kind of advisor to companies, or just do some kind of consultancy 2 or 3 days a week. But the majority of my time is spent, I don't know, doing hobbies, like learning something, or spending time with family, or traveling, or just, yeah.
But that's one way, you know, if you write that down and you take your calendar, or you literally take a calendar, like sometimes you can, you know, take those weekly calendars and they've got the time next to it and then the days. Like if you just sat down and worked out, like on a Monday, this is the kind of thing I want to be doing. On a Tuesday, this is the kind of thing I want to be doing, all the way up to Sunday. And then if your present day doesn't necessarily align with that, then what are you doing to try and get to that? You know, if I appreciate this, you can't just obviously quit your job and whatever else, but are you, but could you be, you know, could you set in line something that allows you to stop working for a period of time?
Yeah.
You know, like savings, or learn another skill in the evenings, or, you know, all these kind of like, like all this kind of, like, oh, my ideal week would be traveling a bit more. Okay, well, can you speak to your boss about taking a Friday off?
Yeah.
Maybe. So yeah, the ideal week thing is definitely something that I think has helped me understand, like, what am I enjoying, what am I not enjoying, and even just questioning what I'm doing. And large parts of it usually end up being things like family, you know, going to major sporting events whenever I want to, or whenever I can, you know, or whenever I want to be honest.
It's that flexibility,
you know, those kind of things. Yeah, it's like next week, I really want to go and see Oppenheimer, because they've filmed it on IMAX, but not just IMAX, but IMAX film, so 70mm film.
I saw that going around.
Which is the equivalent of like 12K.
Wow.
Yeah, so we still feel like film is still a higher, like, digital resolution than digital.
Did not know that. But was it not something like 7 miles, or is it some kind of massive, obviously, like,
it's insane.
Roll out the film, some kind of massive amount of distance.
It's insane. So next Wednesday at 11 a.m, I'm going to go and see Oppenheimer IMAX 70mm. Like, nice. That's an ideal week thing, right? Just because
you can.
Olivia's at grandma's, at Nana's, and I've got a business that allows me to just go and do what the hell I want. So that's a good thing. Like, if any of your friends are struggling with that kind of stuff, it's like, right, there you go. Like, what's your ideal week look like? Because that will then, at least you could go backwards and be like, set some practical solutions to be able to go from there. Other ones are like gravestone things. Like, if you had something written on your gravestone, what would it be, Neil? Like 3 things.
Yeah, like, I don't know, loving father, supportive dad. Yeah, I don't know, great friend.
So like loving father, supporting husband, and great friend.
Yeah,
There
like
you go.
I definitely been trying to be those three things more and more as I get older, and more as I get kind of more mature in my life. What about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, really. I think I'd probably change. Like great friends, good. I like that one. I'd like to include it, but I'd probably give it a go.
Yeah, took a risk.
You know, well, no, not even just give it a go. Just whatever comes up, if there's something new, if there's something I've never done before, or there's an idea in my head, or a thing that's kind of in front of me. Did I give it a go? Did I at least just kind of dip my foot in and see what could happen?
Yeah, that's fair.
There's another one by Alex Hormozy. I don't know if it's by him, but he does like quadrants. So it's like high impact, low effort, high impact, high effort, low impact, high effort, low impact, low effort. So in effect, like the thing that you do, how much impact is going to have.
Yeah, on the overall goal to
coupled with the effort aspect of things. So if you have an idea, like usually it results in you actually just doing more of the thing you do, but better.
Yeah.
Like if you don't like the job you're doing, well, could you get better at it?
Yeah.
Because usually...
Or change jobs.
Usually passion is a side effect of mastery. Like if you get good at something, you feel good about it, right? So you become reasonably passionate about it. So yeah, those are potentially three things you could consider, I guess, isn't it? Right? Is what does your ideal week look like? What does your gravestone look like? And then if you do have an idea of what you want to focus on, then look at how much impact it has and how much effort it's going to take.
Yeah, I think that's solid advice. One thing I thought about just when I looked through the ChatGPT script it gave me was like having open communication or open conversations with your partner. So I know it was one of those reels I saw or LinkedIn things, but it was some kind of relationship psychologist that was answering a question on a podcast. And the question was like, how do you and your husband have things so tight and work together so well? And she came out with that they're very open in terms of how they're feeling in that moment. So an example she gave was she was coming home with...
This is Brene Brown.
Like terrible that I didn't really look at who was speaking or what, but I just remember hearing it. But you may recognize it when I say it. So she basically, her and her husband were in the car. They just arrived home, both busy at work, had two kids in the back ready to get in. And she just turns around to her husband and says, "I'm a 5." And he turns around and says, "Don't worry, I'm at least a 30. So I'll handle tonight." And you just take a back seat. So like being very transparent about your energy levels and your ability to cope with the stresses that are going to come, making dinner, getting kids in the shower or the bath, getting them to bed. I thought that was quite strong. And it just comes down to communication. Like sometimes you might always be at 50% rate, or not always, but sometimes you might have 50%, and your partner might only have 5%. Just being open, being honest.
Is that self-awareness though?
Yeah, you've got to be very good at self-awareness. And
so does self-care is self-care like basically correlation of self-awareness? Because if you're self-aware enough to be like, I'm a 5,
yeah,
then at least you're able to like kind of put a pin on how you're feeling. And then if you put a pin on what you're feeling, then there might be things you can take or do to either lift it or not lift it, like sitting in a room on your own, just chilling out.
Yeah.
Or going for a walk, or going for a run, or eating some vegetables, or going to the gym, or you know what I mean? So self-awareness is kind of a pretty important part, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think you're going to do much self-care if you're not self-aware. I think you need to be pretty self-aware. No.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I don't, could you be that open, or do you see that being a good thing, I guess?
I think it prevents resentment and arguments.
Yeah.
because because it's like I think as human beings we have evolved to understand like how to build societies, and one of those is this reciprocal relationship. So the reciprocal relationship is like, you do something for me, yeah, I do something for you.
Yeah.
And it's like we view relationships as like 50-50, like they're conditional. And if I'm correct in saying this author Brene Brown, she's completely right. Is that it's not about 50-50. It's bollocks.
Yeah.
Like that's not what makes a good partnership. There's certain attributes that I'm sure you have that your wife doesn't have or Rebecca doesn't have, and there's certain attributes she has that you don't have.
Yeah.
That's not 50-50, and that's the point. Because it's about mixing of those two things that either opposites like complement or they swill together and work well together. Like Laura's very empathetic, much more emotional than I am. Certainly very kind, organized, caring. Although I am some of those things, but I'm not as much as she is. But I'm very systematized and very pragmatic and very kind of direct, and that's kind of helpful because then it doesn't. I don't allow my emotions to potentially cloud a judgment of something like where we put our money or where we buy a house or how we discipline our children or So I guess that's kind of like that communication thing. Is if you just realize that it's not 50-50, I think there's an element of self-care in that, because you're being self-aware that you're able to communicate to your wife and say, "Hey,
I'm not doing okay.
It's working, but today's not a good day. Like, can you just take some slack?"
Yeah.
I guess.
I like that. I think it must. I wish I need to find that podcast because, it's just stuck in my mind, but I can't remember who said it. Maybe I should Google it. I know.
Yeah. There is something about the self-care thing that remember that graph that I think we talked about where how people spend their time as they age.
Yeah.
And like this alonement thing, like being alone is such a massive part of that like lifespan. And there's like part of me feels like when you're talking about what some men potentially struggle with, and they cover it up with things like exercise and going for beers and I don't know, just doing stuff rather than sitting quietly somewhere writing it down or thinking about it, but doing it on their own.
Yeah.
And I think that like alone time is self-care. I love alone time just because it's a bit less complicated than generally any other types of life.
Yeah.
But it is like being like sitting alone. Like what's your favorite author? Stillness is the key. Isn't that a thing?
Mr. Ryan Holiday. I'd fully agree, and I think you mentioned it in one of the podcasts that like you want to take yourself away to a forest or a log cabin somewhere and lock your phone away, and
that's an extreme. It's a bit extreme because I think the thing that I've found is certainly this year having realized, or I know it deep down, but having realized that my value isn't in my doing. Like standing holding a camera, pointing it at someone and directing them has value and people pay me for it, but it takes up so much space. Like it takes up so much of my time, my energy, my focus, everything. Whereas if I kind of take that bit out and then apply a couple of other things that allow me to have like 80% of that time back, it allows me just time to think. And like that alone time, that space to not only think about what I want to do in my business, like where do I want to take it? How do I want to drive it? But also to actually go, you know what? Sitting on a train to Wigan is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's quite a scarce commodity for most people, especially like someone like you, Neil, who works in a corporate environment, in a job, and you have to do the stuff. I think it's quite a tough thing to then create space, because like it's like a job. Like when you're at work at Thainston, and if you wanted to go for a break, you'd have to like schedule it, right, for 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if you smoked, you could go out every hour.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of a bit like that with if you turn around to Rebecca and said, "Hey, I'm just going to go outside for 2 hours on my own," she'd be like, "What? Why?"
Yeah.
But because it's good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've learned through trials and tribulations of like just being open and say like, right, I need a break, or I need to take some time, or can you do tonight? I think, yeah. And I think that helps the communication thing, but I also want to get to a point where we're like, if it is Brene Brown, whatever it was.
It's got a good book.
Yeah, I remember. I can't remember what it's called. Was it Highly Successful People or something? Can't remember. Yeah. What am I saying? Yeah, just being that next level of openness to Rebecca and saying, look, I'm a 5. Like, can you deal with tonight? If she's
but what happens if she's a 1?
Well, I've got more than her, so I take it.
So that's this is it, right? There's then. Yeah, I agree. I do think the communication thing is important, and I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is, I think
scoring thing, and
it's kind of because
is your like, 1 actually a 1? Is your 5 actually a 5?
Exactly. But you find that, don't you? Like when you've got kids, you're like, yeah, but I'm tired.
Yeah.
But I'm more tired. Well, what time were you up at? 5. Well, what time were you up at? 6. Well, you had a lion.
We've both got Garmin's as well. That gives us a sleep score.
So you can compare the sleep scores.
One thing I had quite a revolutionary turnaround this week. So the last couple of nights, so at the start of the week, I had rubbish sleep, quite stressed at work, just like waking up at 3 a.m. and just processing work stuff. And I think it was Thursday night, just before I went to bed, I was like, right, I'm going to put everything that's in my head about work down on a bit of paper. I wrote 3 pages of just stuff that I was concerned about. It was floating around in my head, maybe needed action and that kind of thing. And I had the most soundest sleep I'd ever have. And I woke up on the Friday morning. No, this was Wednesday night. Woke up on the Thursday morning. Still had nothing work related in my head. I was like, that's fine. It's all captured on that bit of paper. I don't need to process it. Don't need to do anything. And that was just a massive switch of like taking all my thoughts down and being comfortable that it's somewhere else. So it doesn't need to be in my head. I don't need to process it at 3 a.m. And yeah, I don't know if you've ever felt that, if your head's just full of, I don't know, stuff. You're processing loads of stuff. And
I think one of the big problems with just internalizing it is that it's not a conversation. It's a one-way street. But whereas when you write something down, you can spell check it, you can delete things, you can add things, you can reconstitute it, regurgitate it, like reconsider it. And I think then it becomes more of a two-way conversation.
Yeah, I like that. A two-way street.
Well, because like if you keep stuff in your head, it doesn't, like it's not a conversation. It's just a, like you're talking to yourself. I find that anyway. I don't know how other people find it, but yeah. I find that I'm talking to myself rather than like together with myself. And if I write it down and I write these things down, then I feel like I'm able to have a conversation. Go, no, that's not quite right. That's not actually how I feel. Like, let's change some words or move things around a little bit. And that feels much more of a two-way street. And then it feels less toxic, I think.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. And I think you do realize the stuff I was writing down, I was like, I don't need to be worried about this. I don't need to be stressed about this. Like, there's a plan. Things just take time, yada, yada, yada. So yeah, I guess if anyone's out there, that self-care can also be just sit down with a notebook and write stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's perhaps, I don't know whether there's a difference, but there might be a difference between taking a pen and piece paper and a piece of pencil and a pen, and then physically writing it rather than typing it out, I guess. I think there's probably something in that over typing it out.
Yeah. I wonder what the science is, because I wrote it out physically, but yeah, I don't think I get the same kind of relief just typing it in a OneNote or a Apple Notes.
Yeah. There's other stuff you've got here from ChatGPT. Physical health, that's definitely got to be a foundation.
Yeah. Oh, one thing that picked out that I probably am aware of, but I haven't talked about it before, is like your kids are learning, like they're learning by you doing. So if they're conscious of us taking breaks or us taking time, or sometimes Isla comes up to you in the morning and says, "Dad, what are you writing down? What are you doing?" And I just say, "Oh, I'm writing my plan for today," or something like that. So yeah, I guess it's quite they learn by observation, and if they're seeing parents take breaks, hopefully when they're older they realize that it's okay to have downtime. It's okay to go for that run, put that plaster on, type thing.
But even Olivia, if I go for a run, she goes, "Daddy, running."
yeah, exactly. Just those small things, I think, and that awareness of if you're a young dad, then it's not just you that's going to benefit. Hopefully your kids will learn that writing things down, keeping fit, is all good.
Yeah, there's a little bit about even being specific about what you're writing down.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my emotions.
Yeah.
It feels weird to say out loud, but that's kind of what you're doing, right?
Just wanted to capture for the podcast. I asked Isla tonight just before bed, what are you most excited? She always talks about her birthday and like what she wants to do for her birthday party and stuff. And I'm like, do you realize that you're kind of wishing away time? And like, when you get to your birthday, you're going to be a year older. And she was kind of pondering. And then I said, what makes you excited about getting older? And her response,
deep conversation for an 8-year-old.
Yeah, I know. Her response, like, to the word was, I get to be in charge.
I get to be in charge. Wow.
I wish I had a microphone to record it, because I need to capture that in my head. I've captured it now on the podcast, but it was absolutely hilarious. Like, it's just
wants to be in charge.
It's Isla down to a T though. Like,
why does she want power? Like, what's that? What's that all about, Neil?
She loves to control the boys, and we always tell her, "You're not in charge. You're not the mum or the dad. Just leave the boys to it." And I think she's obviously, she wants to be in charge.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, you should have been like, well, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, you can start paying the bills and.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can start paying the bills. You want to be in charge, then whoever holds the money.
It's one of those moments where I want to remember for her wedding speech or whatever. Just when she turns 18 or something, or 21. Just a big the memory of when she's 8. She was 8 years old. Her response to what makes you excited about growing up, not like getting a job or getting a house or having kids, being in charge.
Do you think that's she's using a word that's kind of associated with freedom?
Oh, yeah, she sees her mum and dad, and
because she can't control or being in charge is control.
Yeah,
and a basic wish for most of us is to choose what we do, when we do, and how we do it.
Yeah. Interesting take on it.
Because she's also at an age where, she's aware of her abilities. Like, her development now is the point where she can communicate clearly in terms of what she wants to eat and where she wants to go and what she likes and what she dislikes. Physically, she can do that because she can run and she can carry herself and move around. But the things that are restraining her are really you and like your eyes of what she's actually capable of, because you have the hindsight of time where she doesn't.
Yeah, yeah.
So she has only the hindsight of a short period of time that she remembers of her life, which allows her to reflect and be like, well, I couldn't do it then, but I can do it now. So then clearly I'm capable of doing it tomorrow, and then the next day and the next year and whatever else. Whereas you're 25, 24 years ahead of her, and you can see that she's not physically capable enough. She's not got the mental capacity to deal with it. And you're also terrified because she's your daughter.
Yeah. Does she just mean freedom?
I think she might do, yeah.
Yeah.
So then how do you do that for her? How do you make her feel a sense of independence without losing the grip of fatherhood?
Yeah, I don't know. Come back to me on that one. I think it comes with age as well. She used to get to her like 5 more birthdays.
Nah, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's purely a dad thing. Like you're holding on to your baby daughter rather than, because she's capable of going out and doing what she wants. She can go to the park on her own.
Yeah, so she's allowed to go to the small park. Yeah, like there's definitely boundaries we've set that give her more freedom. We've talked about if she wants to walk to school, she's more than happy to. She gets to go to the toilet
pocket
herself.
Money yet?
No.
Okay.
There's and I need to do some more research, but there's a weird thing about pocket money. Like, it shouldn't be done for jobs because that just is like kind of
no, you don't have to do it for jobs.
Reward.
You give her £5 and you say, look, you can, if you want to get yourself some food when you're out in the park or whatever else.
Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, she's like, when we're in restaurants now and she needs a toilet, she'll go herself. And that's normally it's like she needs me to go with her, but now it's fine for her to go. And
maybe you should ask her. Maybe you should ask her if dad was to give you more responsibility, what would that look like?
Yeah. Tune in for the next episode.
That'd be quite fun.
Yeah.
Like if she turned around and said, oh, I'd like to buy myself something, or I'd like to go out with my friends. Like, just ask her what she sees as in, like, she wants to be in charge. Then what does in charge mean? What does that look like?
Yeah.
And if she says, oh, I want to do my own thing, I'm like, okay, well, what's your own thing?
Yeah. I'll speak to her tomorrow morning. See what she says.
There's also the other things in the ChatGPT thing. You got mental health matters. Becoming a father comes with increased responsibility, changes in routine, added stress. It's essential for dads to be aware of their mental health and recognize that it's okay to experience a range of emotions. Taking care of mental health is not a sign of weakness, but rather a proactive step towards being emotionally available for their family. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Communication, seek support. Yeah. Go, what's the other things?
Set
Be
boundaries.
kind to yourself. Boundaries. Seek support. Yeah, what's that one? Like, dad should hesitate to seek support from friends, family, professionals when needed. What did you do when you had your first kid? Because you were very young, and you were like 14 or something when you had your first kid. So
if you're
how did you?
I wasn't at 14. I think I was like 23, 24. Anyway,
In doggy years, you were 14.
I don't think like I probably that naive age where like I don't need support.
Really?
Yeah.
Just had a kid. I'm 14. Yeah, I do it myself.
Yeah, and I think I've spoken about when the twins came. I was a bit more mature and yeah, needed help, and we got some help from somebody, but and I'm now even more aware. I think it comes in being more mature, like just being able to hold your hand up and say, "Look, I need some help," or "We need some help," or like it's again.
Did that only come when you were? Did that only come when you were at the edge of being broken, though?
Maybe
rather than maturity.
Maybe, but I think if it wasn't as mature, then I would have just tried to ride it out and see what happens. Yeah, I think there is some link to like self-awareness, self-care, and your level of maturity. I think if you're young and naive, you just think you can handle everything and do everything.
I think that's anybody in the first experience, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, there's a bit of stubbornness, I guess, and those kind of things, and maybe some people are better at, getting over the stubbornness. But I don't know. There's something about It's just, there's something about pushing your abilities in anything to the absolute limit and then asking for help.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you at least have like some workings.
Yeah.
You have something, rather than just saying, I can't do this. You feel much less capable, and you feel much more useful if you're able to describe what went wrong.
Yeah. That's fair. But yeah, there's obviously boundaries to that in terms of you don't want to push yourself too far.
Yeah, but does anyone ever get too far?
I think it's people that kill themselves. Being morbid.
People kill themselves because they've gone too far. I don't think they've gone too far.
Well, I think they've gone too far in terms of they should have reached out for help sooner.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
They just like kept going, or kept trying to process it, or kept trying to do something that obviously wasn't working.
Yeah, the never-ending sort of spiral.
Yeah. What a way to end the podcast.
Sensational. Hope people tune in for the next one. I have no idea if that was going to be helpful, that as a helpful podcast or not, but maybe it was. But the idea of if you're stuck in a rut, don't really know what to do with your life or what to carry on or how to recognize what's good, bad, or indifferent. I guess there's the ideal calendar, there's the ideal week, the gravestone, and then the kind of high impact, low effort kind of quadrant thing. What else did we talk about? Communication. Neil's now permanently a 1, so he doesn't have to do any chores around the house. That's all. How much? What else did we talk about? Oh, being alone, like actually spending some time on your own, especially when you've got kids and a family and a wife and a work and all sorts of other things going on.
Writing stuff down is like a 2-way street instead of a 1-way street just in your head.
There you go. That's it. Gordon Greenhorn 2023. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for listening to episode 85 of the Developing Dads podcast. If you aren't listening on Spotify, I have no idea where you're listening onto this podcast. It's probably Apple Podcasts and then some other weird one. For any of the 3.5 listeners that got here, if you do fancy it, leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on. Probably Spotify. That would be very nice. I can't see them, which is kind of annoying. But whatever you're leaving, it very good. This will be up on YouTube, I'm sure, at some point, and you can check out any reels that Neil eventually posts on our Instagram, Developing Dads. Either way, hope you're all well, hope you're good, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.